India's general election, held earlier this year, attracted a great deal of attention, and rightly so. It was the biggest democratic exercise in human history, a monumental logistical undertaking that saw around 650 million ballots cast in a country of wildly various landscape and not always reliable infrastructure. In one instance, a polling station was built in a remote mountain village to serve a single family of 5 living beyond the reach of electricity. Election officials schlepped 7 hours in each direction to ensure that those votes were counted. Happily for admirers of the resourcefulness demonstrated by India in guaranteeing the franchise, another Indian election is taking place this week, and one in which all the physical and political challenges of such an endeavour are magnified. For the first time in a decade, they are voting for a local assembly in Jammu and Kashmir. Explaining every reason why this is an especially big deal could consume every explainer between now and the death of the sun. To contemplate Jammu and Kashmir even briefly is to be inescapably reminded of the remark attributed to Lord Palmerston, mid-19th century Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, about the then pressing diplomatic question of Schleswig-Holstein. That only 3 people had ever understood it: Prince Albert, who was dead, a Danish statesman who'd gone mad thinking about it, and Palmerston himself, who'd forgotten about it. But the basics are these, with due apologies for the necessity of skipping quite a lot of detail. But seriously, if any listeners fancy driving themselves all the way around the twist, or reckon they've sorted out the Middle East before lunch and fancy a real challenge, there are absolute reams of claim, counterclaim, counter-counterclaim, and any amount of reasonable competing aspirations, grievances real and imaginary, and just seething sectarian nonsense you can be getting to grips with. So, when India became independent after World War II, it was split into 2 countries, Hindu-majority India, Muslim-majority Pakistan, which has not proved a recipe for neighbourly harmony. Within that split, a sub-split was made of the border state of Kashmir, between the Indian-administered Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, now a separate territory, and the Pakistani-administered Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Kashmir. China also holds a couple of chunks of Kashmir, but we really don't have all day. Neither India nor Pakistan has ever been happy with the arrangement, not least because within Jammu and Kashmir there is a further split between Hindu-majority Jammu and Muslim-majority Kashmir. As a consequence of all of the above, 3 wars have been fought over Kashmir between India and Pakistan, along with uncountable skirmishes and attacks involving insurgents and militias. To bring us extremely briskly up to the present day, in 2019 India revoked the special autonomous status long enjoyed by Jammu and Kashmir, seeking to emphasise the belief of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi that Jammu and Kashmir is just another Indian state, and that there should be no argument as to whom the territory belongs. This case was further made with a sustained and frequently brutal crackdown on any expressions of dissent, including an 18-month suspension of the internet. The election being held this week is for 90 seats in Jammu and Kashmir's new Legislative Assembly. Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party are fielding candidates in about a third of those seats, but in most other respects this will not be like other Indian state elections. The 2 leading parties are specific to the region: the People's Democratic Party, led by former Kashmir Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti, and the National Conference, led by another former Kashmir Chief Minister, Omar Abdullah, who has travelled a long way from his birthplace of Rochford in Essex. But what may really distinguish this Jammu and Kashmir election from previous Jammu and Kashmir elections is the participation of groupings who in the past have either boycotted the vote or attempted to sabotage it. There are candidates running backed by Jamaat-e-Islami, an officially outlawed Islamist party with historical links to Pakistan-sponsored militant groups. Other picturesque contenders include the Awami Ittihad Party, whose leader, Engineer Rashid, was earlier this year elected to India's national parliament from prison, where he had been remanded awaiting trial on charges of funding terrorism. He has been released on bail to contest this week's election.
Some former chief ministers accuse that he has been deliberately released at this juncture to divide the valley. And to them, the game plan of BJP or centre is to divide.
Quite a lot of the parties are promising, possibly somewhat whimsically, to somehow recover Kashmir's special autonomous status. There is, especially if you are Narendra Modi, and hello Prime Minister if you're listening, an optimistic assessment of this, i.e. that the dramatic stroke of revoking Jammu and Kashmir's autonomy has worked, and that those who once pursued their aims through violence and terror have understood that they will now have to make their case democratically.
Over 25 days.
Today, kids are going to school. Workers are off to work in cities. They used to worry whether they would make it back home in the night because there used to be frequent bomb blasts earlier.
The pessimistic outlook might fret about the consequences of allowing extremists to claim a popular mandate. And in Kashmir's history, the pessimistic outcome has always been a contender. For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Mueller.
"2024 is a defining year for global politics as more people head to the polls than ever before. How will shifts in power impact you? The Financial Times provides fearless thinking in defining moments. Its trusted journalists provide impartial analysis of the economy, politics, and business, so you can join the dots and see the full picture. Start reading the Financial Times at ft.com.